Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
And I'm Karam.
Welcome everyone. Seb, what is coming up on the show?
Well, this week, Joe has very kindly agreed to wildcard, so we can use that use that for a prism to look at discussion around this week, the upcoming weeks, players and teams to discuss, and whether you're wildcarding or not. Hopefully, there'll be something in there for you. I'm not wildcarding, for example, but I'm going to need to know what others are doing so that I can build my team accordingly. We will, of course, then look ahead to the next four fixtures, as always. We've got the rough with the smooth is making a return. We'll look at transfers, captaincy, and whatnot. And newly married Karam, yay, has a much harder decision to make when he picks a differential. But first, you two are going to tell me about how I should have captained Kane, I guess.
Yes, okay, we'll have a very quick recap of our Game Week 30 scores. And yes, I captained Kane, so I did okay. Like many Kane captainers. So I put my team up, got 66, so pretty happy with that. I had Edison in goal, Dallas, Konsa, Alonso, so not great on the defence. Rafinha, he was great the week against, I know Sheffield United, but he is great. Fernandes, Lingard, Son, Calvert-Lewin, Kane captaincy, Bamford, and on my bench, I correctly benched Gundogan and Stones. So that was a slight risk, and they never showed up. And it turned out that it was Kufan who got the 4 points on my bench. So Jed Steer, once again, with his customary nothing. This is probably why I'm wildcarding. Even though I got 66 points, I knew that this was a good week for my team. There was lots of very favourable fixtures. So it's one of those weeks where I was quite optimistic. And that's why I felt okay captaining Kane as well, because I didn't need that big differential captaincy. I just thought I'd go for that. But it's looking pretty bad from Game Week 31 onwards for a few weeks. So that's why I'm wildcarding. But more of that later. Karam, you're up next. Another good week. 62. And once again, another Kane captainer. Martinez in goal. Luca Dean, Dallas, Aspilicueta, who was a guaranteed clean sheet, wasn't he?
My 3 bonus points.
Diaz,
all easy.
Fernandes, Rafinha, De Bruyne, Vardy, Watkins, maligned, but he's pretty good actually.
He's got some talent.
And Kane, who you captained, and on your bench. Oh, this is good. I love to see a bench like this. Fabry, Gundogan, Smith Rowe, Mitchell, Fat Zero for all of that. So you bang on for the bench. You must be quite pleased with that, 62.
Yeah, it's been a good week. After a set of horrible game weeks, I finally pulled out a good one. I wildcarded about 5 game weeks ago, and for this exact reason that I don't want to see bench points because I struggled with it. But on a serious note, I benched Diaz originally for Gundogan, and luckily he didn't come on, so I got the clean sheet. Very, very welcome. Dania, he's on the shopping list, but I have already made my transfer, so he stays for another game week. And I just want to talk about KDB. Like, for how long we have to watch KDB and own him, and he's been the best player in the match, and he doesn't get points. So another unlucky day for KDB.
Yeah.
It's not clicking for him this season in overall. He would have had a lot more this season. But yeah, it is what it is. Next game week is a tricky one for me as a 9 wildcarder because there's a lot of fixture swing, and we will see how we can cope with that for all managers who have the
Yeah, definitely. I just want to say, even though the conversation be framed around my wildcard, it's not about my wildcard. It's about wildcarding in general, fixture swings, form, player form. So it's for non-wildcarders and wildcarders alike to pick players, because obviously don't want to alienate almost everyone who's not going to wildcard. So there we go. And Seb, on to you. As you said, you were a Kane captaincy away from the sort of scores that me and Karam got. So you had Martinez in goal, Luke Ayling, Shaw, Luca Dean, Rafinha, who you captained, still got a return, Bale, Son, De Bruyne, Bamford, the maligned Watkins, and then Kane, vice-captain. And you nailed your bench, just Veltman and Pope getting you a couple of points. It's not a great score, but it's a good score in that you were literally a captaincy away from a good score.
Oh yeah, let's be honest, it's not a good score. But I think, as you say, that's what, a 7 point swing or so, give or take. Mid 50s would have been all right. It's one of those ones where I would say the difference between Rafinha and Kane before the match was very, very narrow. And then after the match, the outcome is quite a large difference, and I'm left behind, which is the way it goes. Fair enough, made the wrong decision.
Yeah, but I mean, quite a few. I saw in a lot of my mini leagues, Rafinha was the one that if you weren't captaining Kane, it was largely Rafinha. There was a few Fernandes captains around, but yeah, I thought Leeds against Sheffield United. I think Sheffield United are definitely the team to target, and Bamford didn't look on it. I must admit.
He's not really done for a little while. Like he got a goal, was it last week or so? But both his underlying stats and his actual output has seen a downturn recently. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago about how maybe the style isn't quite suiting him as much. Rafinha, though, I think is dangerous as ever, if not more so. And then in terms of choosing him as the captain over Kane, it was a case of, like you say, Sheffield United pretty poor to how we were going to attack as well, probably. Of course, Kane is always a good option. I think if I really had to be honest with myself, I probably fell into that trap, which I would tell other people not to, and I can't believe I did it, of thinking I've got Kane, Son and Bale. So if Spurs do well, cool, I've got that covered, which is a terrible word and I hate it. So I felt more comfortable captaining Rafinha. Really, what I should do is just captain the player I thought that was going to score the most. And maybe that was Rafinha, maybe it was Kane, that was quite close. But I was quite happy in my Rafinha captain to that, because of that bias, but maybe I slipped up there.
Yeah, well, I think it is one of those moments, isn't it, where that can pay off. If it's a team like Liverpool and you're looking at Mane, Salah, and they're all fully firing Liverpool, but I think it's with Bale, you don't know whether he's going to start. And Son not starting was a shock because Mourinho said he would be selected, but we just didn't know.
The Son one surprised me. He's got decent creative numbers, although a lot of people have Son. I think Bale as well. When I did an article for Scout at the end of last week just talking about what I would do if I was wildcarding. I had Bale in that. I don't think I would now. It looks like, for whatever reason, he's not in Mourinho's favour. So, fair enough. It's an easy one to move on to another player, though.
Okay, well, just before we come on to the main topic about wildcard and also trying to keep up with the wildcarders, we got some rough with the smooths this time. So a couple of roughs. Delafeo ended up with 9 players this week, thanks to Pep Roulette. He also captained Bruno over Kane, so one of those never rains but it pours. But he did have Alexander Arnold, who got a double-digit haul. Kanzi was amongst those who captained Havertz. So you were talking about captaining Rafinha in a favourable fixture and not going for Kane. There are quite a few who did that with Havertz as well, because on paper West Brom was an easy target for Chelsea. Let's move to the smooths though. Pandin Brine is top of the our mini league, and is third overall in the overall standings. So top of the Fantasy Football Scout League, third overall. That's pretty amazing. Peter Alloway, he got the highest score in a league I'm in called the Top 10K Any Season League. If you've been in the top 10K any season, you're in the league. If you want,
where's my invite?
Well, I'll send you a
humble,
link.
Humble brag down. I'm really sorry.
I don't actually know who runs it, so if anyone who runs it can let us know. I'd like to know more about it.
All right, I'm currently 200k. I just lose. I don't want to.
It's any season. If you've done it before, any season. Well, anyway, Peter Alloway, he timed a bench boost very well. So he had Pope, Lingard, Diaz, and Kufal. 24 extra points on the bench boost. Very nice. In a week like this, that's just a simple extra 24 points on everyone else.
Very nice indeed.
Because very few people have bench boosted. So great.
Like you said, this week was quite good for just before wildcarding. There were some good fixtures.
Yeah.
Clearly, he's got a great score there. He's taken advantage. Fair play.
If I didn't have Jed Steer, so for example, if I had say a Nick Pope or a reasonable goalkeeper, I would have bench boosted because I would have got rid of it. Although I would have come a cropper because on the City rotation, but nevertheless. And Peter Alloway, he also had James Rodriguez in his main team, and he captained Kane. Got 91 points, and he's up to 22k. Well done, Peter. Trond, who is in another league that I'm part of, the top 1k any season league. So any season. Not necessarily this one. But with Trond there, he's up to 11,000 in the overall rankings. He's got 98 points. Pereira's 21 points. That helped him. What a differential, Pereira. And he also had Jota, Alexander Arnold, Kane captaincy. Bearing in mind he was 191... 191st last year in the overall rankings. So Trond could be on for another top 500, top 200k finish, top 200 finish rather. Amazing stuff. Let's move on to the main topic. So I'm wildcarding this week. Earlier this season, I fired off a secret wildcard. Didn't even tell Az. I think Karam was in the Scoutcast studio at the time. I didn't tell him. Didn't tell anyone. No discussion, no outside influence. So it was all down to me. So this time around, I can blame everyone else. So I'm bearing all for the community. So what I'll do is we'll discuss some of the reasons why I'm wildcarding and why you two are wildcarding, why other people are wildcarding. I'll also go through some of the players in my thoughts and issues I'm facing, because I think they'll be similar to other people who are wildcarding and also those who aren't wildcarding, because as Karam said, there's a bit of a fixture swing at the moment. So those who aren't wildcarding are thinking I might have to take a hit, maybe at least a couple of transfers to sort of get your team up to speed. So hopefully it'll help you out, and hopefully it'll help me out. So we've got community questions on wildcarding too. So what I'll do is I'll read out some of those questions, and what we'll do is during the discussion, hopefully we'll answer all of those. If not, harangue me on Twitter about that. So FPL Dude says, what is the best combination? Jota and Vardy or Salah and Iheanacho? This is a great question, because these are all four players in wildcarders' thoughts at the moment, but it is difficult to have all four, or is it? Because we'll find out. Nuclear Atoms, he's on a wildcard and he's wondering who the shield should be and who the sword should be, so hopefully we'll come to that. Ian Walker, the best Liverpool players for a wildcard. A lot of people going for triple Liverpool. Which ones? There's a 4 million starting defender in Liverpool's ranks, but then there's Alexander Arnold. Robertson an alternative. Salah, Jota, Mane. Quite a few options there. Which three? FPL Lampard, which is the best formation? 3-4-3 with Iheanacho, or 3-5-2 with a cheap midfielder instead, like Smith Rowe or Saka even. So looking to Arsenal. Also with Wolves, something I have been considering and will keep considering is whether I go Dendoncker deep. 4.6. He's got a goal in him as well, and Wolves have great fixtures. Will I go Dendoncker deep? He is there in reserve. So what I'm going to put up now is something I call my wildcard checklist. So this is something I try and ask myself when I'm wildcarding, and other people might too. So is it the right time? So for me, that's based on some of the other things we're going to discuss. Fixtures, form, the state of my team. Does my team need a wild card? Do I need a number of moves to make to get it into shape? My answer this week is yes, and I'll discuss why. But coming to both of you, you've both used your wild card. Karam, I'll go for you first. When is the right time to wild card? When you wild carded, why did you wild card then, and why was it the right time? It might chime with some people who are wild carding now.
Well, I used my wildcard just after the WGO 26, that was, I think. And that was because I need to reshuffle things for my team, and I had a very expensive bench, and I was missing some key players that I wanted for that running. And I think this is one of the key reasons for me, at least, to decide whether it's a good time to wildcard or not. I personally now, without the wildcard, I find myself maybe 4 or 5 players away from the team that I want because of the fixture swing. I don't have any Liverpool cover until last week, so Liverpool has by far the very best fixture run until the end of the season. So I think this game week is indeed a very good opportunity to wildcard, especially for those who have already planned as part of their strategies to dead end their team in game week 30, take a punt on Alonso or any other player, and then wildcard, because there are a lot of teams have fixture swing. That's a key reason for that. And I think there is another opportunity later on this season, around 34, where if you have a good team now and you plan to wildcard later, it could be after the blank 33, 34, could be another good opportunity. But speaking about this game week, yeah, I think there's a valid reason to consider the wild card.
So and Seb, what about you? When was you wildcarded previously? Why then, and why was it the right time?
I used mine in 24, I think it was, which was just ahead of that. I think it was Leeds had a double in 25. Then we had the 26, obviously leading up to that 29 blank. There was that period of fixtures that we, whether you had chips or not, we were kind of planning as a chunk, weren't we? I used my wild card to plan for that. I had as well a team that was unsuitable for it, so I did need to make some changes. And it pretty much halved my rank. I think it knocked about 200k off, so that's good. Although, you know, it's a trading game, right? So now I might expect to lose 100k to the people who are wildcarding, come out net 100 up. That would be good. We'll see what happens. Honestly, I wish I had a wildcard now. I was looking at my team and I would probably make, not even if I was forcing myself to, I could probably easily make 4 transfers. I've got 2 free transfers, so I could take a -8 and it would be okay. But as Karam has said well there, there's a few things we could take advantage of now, not least of all the fixture swing, setting up for future double game weeks with our wildcard, maybe changes in, you know, people like Bale, City having a blank game week, Tottenham then having a blank obviously themselves. One thing to highlight, whether you'd save the wildcard for this or not, I don't know. Maybe you just plan for it in this one. Is there is a little fixture swing around 34 and 35, I think. Of course, we might have another double in 35 or so, where teams, I think off the top of my head, Chelsea's fixtures get tougher. Leeds improve, West Ham improve.
Well, let's put
so
those
maybe
fixtures
you
up
want to
then.
plan for that a little bit.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
nice.
I mean, that's a good segue into it. So the next one on my checklist is fixtures, and here is the next fixtures. And as you were saying, I'll come to the why now is a good time to wildcard. But yeah, looking at that 34, 35, this is excluding the imminent double game weeks and blanks that are inevitably around this time. But exactly what you were saying. There, game week 35. I'm going to look down at Leeds is what I want. There we go. So yeah, game week 34, they played Brighton. So bear in mind they've just played City, Liverpool, Manchester United. Suddenly, game week 34, it becomes amazing. They got Brighton, Tottenham, and then this really good block of 3: Burnley, Southampton, and West Brom. So I would class Brighton and Tottenham as sort of okay. But then Burnley, Southampton, West Brom gets really good. And that happens exactly, you were saying about Chelsea, that happens at exactly the same time. So Chelsea have Fulham, game week 34, and then it just goes awful. They've got City, Arsenal, Leicester, and okay with Villa at the end.
So the one I really like there is if you look at Chelsea and Leicester have a decent next 4. I mean, Leicester's are all right, kind of a little bit longer, but they have a decent next 4. And then they almost swap perfectly with Leeds and West Ham. So you could quite easily, for example, just top of my head, do like an Azpilicueta and Alonso to Cresswell, and then, you know, a Bamford to Antonio. No, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, an Iheanacho to a Bamford or an Antonio. Something like that is maybe something to keep in mind. To come back to the wildcard, if I was wildcarding now, I would maybe keep a Rafinha, put him on my bench because I don't want him against the next 3, if I can keep him on my bench. But save myself that transfer, have him come back into the team in 34. I've got a transfer then in the bank. And if I do need someone from the bench in those next few fixtures, who better to have than, you know, a man who's turning great stats into decent output?
I think later on.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think later on in the discussion that we will talk about the midfielders.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main questions that we've got already, whether would you go to Lingard or you would keep Rafinha? And it's one of the questions I'm asking myself, like, should I keep Rafinha or sell him for Lingard or somebody else? So yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
I did have Rafinha on my wildcard, and he isn't on my wildcard at the moment. But the reason I did have him on my wildcard, and is exactly what you were saying, Seb, it saves the transfer. On a recent Meet the Manager video I had with Tom Stevenson, he revealed, this was a couple of weeks ago now, so I'm sure his wildcard draft is different, but he had Rafinha. And his exact reason was it's a transfer he knows he wants to make in game week 36. So he's just saved himself a transfer and he's got ahead by at least a transfer on rivals there. And that's why he, according to our live Hall of Fame, is just behind Fabio as the second best FPL manager of all time that we can track. That he knows what he's doing. And that's why I did. But then I thought, I think I need that place for someone else because there are great players around that price. Lingard is on form and West Ham's fixtures, I would say, are up and down. They're okay. But then you've also got the possibility of Gundogan. Now, I'm without a captain this week, unless I go for just a tried and tested Fernandes or Kane. And Gundogan could be a good captaincy shout. Could be. even though he is starting this week in the
I
Champions
mean,
League.
worth noting he's playing tonight, but as we discussed beforehand, we think because it rested at the weekend, there's a decent chance. I think with City's fixtures, just looking at them here, it's tough to nail it completely because obviously Dortmund tonight, and by the way, they're 1-0 up. Kevin De Bruyne scored, assisted by Mahrez.
It's
That guy that doesn't score goals. I mean, is that 6 in 8 for him now, I think, Karam?
Yeah, something like that. It has been in their own competition. I think, apart from the brace against Southampton, I think he got a couple of blanks and he's been destroying the cups and the Champions League. But I hope he plays these. We'll speak about it at the end.
The other, I was just going to say about Rafinha, just to highlight why he isn't in my team, but why I do want him later, is because there is quite a nice double move you can do either over 2 weeks or straight off. Of if you say have Phillips instead of Alexander Arnold, and you've got Son, you can remove Son to Rafinha and upgrade Phillips to Alexander Arnold, which is a nice move, I think. And I think you're going to get those extra assists from Alexander Arnold. And of course, I'm unsure about Son at the moment. And I know that those final 3 fixtures, if Rafinha's fit, I want him in my team. So that's just something for wildcarders to consider. There is a nice
I'd be tempted to have Trent and Phillips if I was doing a wildcard now. Phillips is very much... I mean, maybe his place is a bit more nailed than it was a few weeks ago. But if it's not, it's 4.0 on the bench, not a problem. And if he does play, they've got probably the best fixtures till the end of the season. You'd hope for a clean sheet. I would see him and Trent as maybe separate propositions. Of course, that then means you only have one midfield slot, but I maybe wouldn't have Salah. Whereas Trent's... we've got a question about Robbo and Trent later, so we'll cover it then. But his stats have been fine all season, just maybe not the output, and they're looking even better now. So I quite want him anyway, regardless of whether it's a Liverpool defender. Then I'll get Phillips to go alongside that. He's nice and cheap. In midfield, maybe I'd have Jota. And then, I'd hold on to Son. I'd have Rafinha. I want Kevin De Bruyne. I have a thing for him. And currently, I would have had Gareth Bale, but we discussed I'd maybe lose him. So I'd possibly look at, say, having maybe a Lingard. I mean, Antonio's now injured, so if I want a West Ham asset, maybe it is Lingard.
Yeah.
And keep some money for maybe a Son to a Bruno, or maybe I try and get him Bruno in early. That's possibly what I'd look to do with my triple Liverpool slot.
Liverpool is a tizzy because you've got 4 million starting defender. You've also got Alexander Arnold and you've got Jota and Salah. Those 4 I think are really good. And which ones to go for? What you can't have them all. You have to have 3 tops. So one has to go. And ideally, I would have Alexander Arnold, Salah, and Jota. Ideally, I would. But as other wildcarders now will work out,
those 3.
If you have those, you have to make sacrifices elsewhere. And then you start to think, do I want to make that sacrifice because of Alexander Arnold? And when you start making sacrifices just because of one player. But yeah, that's something I'll come to when we talk about players. But yeah, just looking at the fixtures there, these are good times to wildcard. So 31, we can see the fixture swing there of what we're coming through. So so the likes of Villa, Leeds, they all had great fixtures, but now they don't. And then the likes of Liverpool, Wolves, Arsenal, West Ham are still patchy, but Liverpool, Wolves, Arsenal are much better. Tottenham have this double game week as well. You've got to factor that in. I think that's the main one really as well. Man City having more rotation is something also to factor in as well. But then as Seb was pointing out, game week 35, 36, that's another great move. So let's have a look back at the wildcard checklist. Is it the right time? Well, we decided can be this time for those who are. Fixtures we've looked at there. So fixtures is the main criteria I think for me. But player form, and that brings us into something Seb was talking about Alexander Arnold, talking about the Liverpool defence and which ones to go for. So the table I got up at the moment is last 4 matches, and this is I call it the worst defences, but if you look at the bottom of it, obviously they're the best defences. So in terms of big chances conceded, the teams you want to target are Sheffield United, Burnley, Arsenal at the moment, Crystal Palace and Wolves and Southampton. These are the ones that are likely to ship goals a varying degree. Sheffield United obviously will likely to ship much more. Expected goals conceded of well over 10. They conceded 9. Burnley as well. we last week to tip Southampton as against Burnley as a good fixture to target as a 1 week punt. I think I recommended Adams, who didn't actually play, but of course Ings and Armstrong, Redmond, any of those 1 week punts, those who went for a Southampton player, well done. But if you look down the bottom, the best defences, despite what happened against West Brom, is Chelsea, then Liverpool, Manchester United, Man City. So usual suspects. Also Leeds are there as well. But Liverpool weren't there before. Liverpool were right up there. They were one of the worst defences, and now they're one of the best because they got Kabak and Phillips, and they've got this steady centre-back pairing.
I would argue Fabinho back in midfield as well, which of course is because, like you say, they've now got a centre-back pairing, but he probably makes the biggest difference to their defensive solidity. And then by knock-on, maybe their chances of scoring higher up the pitch as well, because if you're collecting the ball in the right areas, holding on to it, stopping other teams breaking through you and able to recycle it, they're probably able to create better and more consistent chances for themselves, or at least chances in the way they want to create them, which again brings us back to the fullbacks.
Yeah. So looking at those defences there, to wildcard now, or if you're not wildcarding, defenders to target, I think a Chelsea defender looks key, despite what happened with West Brom. A Liverpool defender looks key, and there's a lot of choice there. A Manchester United one looks key. So obviously Shaw is an important player there because he can get assists. A Man City defender, which one's going to start? Well, Ederson or Diaz, really. So if you can stretch that far to one of those two, great assets to get. And then we discussed Leeds fixtures are pretty poor at the moment, so expect them to rise up this table in terms of the worst defences, and then hopefully get better when we want to target them. But they're the ones we want to be targeting. So obviously you want to be targeting teams as well that are playing the likes of Sheffield United, as well as getting those key defences. And if we look at player form as well, so this certainly helped my decision. Do I own a lot of these players? And have I got players from teams with poor fixtures and poor defences? So here we can see why Kane is, I'm going to just call him essential. I'm just going to say it out there, the E word, because he's got a double game week and he's the best player at the moment because he's getting assists, he's getting goals. His expected goal involvement is well over 5. Big chances 5, goals 5. I mean, this is great. He's just, he's hitting his underlying stats. There's no anomalies here. He's just there. Minutes per goal attempts in the box every 31 minutes, 32 minutes or so. That's great. 11 shots inside the box, 8 on target. These are really good prime Kane moves. Iheanacho there. So if we think he's going to keep his place, he is a great asset to have with Leicester's fixtures there. So he's a player to bring in as well. Jesus is the City form player at the moment, and he's been rested Champions League. He's very much in my thoughts as a 1 week punt on my wildcards. Jesus.
So would you have him for, you'd wildcard him in and then immediately look to transfer him?
I'd immediately get rid of him. Yeah, because
is that something you want to do though? Do you want? I know we've discussed obviously looking at players in 34, but should you make a transfer for yourself in your wildcard? What happens if a couple of players get injured? Is that something you want to carry?
That's the beauty of wildcarding, because your bench conceivably you should have a good bench. At the moment, I'm Jed steered deep in this. I was Mitchell deep, but I was nowhere.
Chowdhury deep.
Chowdhury deep. I was almost Chowdhury deep. I don't want to be that deep into my bench, but hopefully, in theory, wildcarding. So, for example, if I've got to make that transfer, so that means I'm behind on another transfer. But because I'm wildcarding, I'm up on about 5 or 6 transfers. So it should all pay out. And also, so we'll find out with the captaincy this week. And those that listened to me and David this morning on the captaincy podcast and video, it's a tough choice this week. And City against Leeds is one of the better fixtures to target. Anyway, so Jesus there. And then Chris Wood, don't laugh, is a really good option at the moment. Burnley's fixtures aren't too bad.
Vidra deep.
Vidra deep. I think it was Ted recommended Vidra last week, and Vidra scored. Yeah. Chris Wood is the 4th best in terms of expected goal involvement. But these are last 4 matches, by the way. All unless otherwise stated, everything's last 4 matches. Just a really good recent metric to use. Then you've got Jesse Lingard there. 4 big chances. Bruno Fernandes still rocking around. Rafinha, De Bruyne, Lacazette. If you're going for an Arsenal asset, Lacazette's probably the one to get. Last 4 matches this is, so this doesn't include Ashley Barnes being injured or anything. And Calvert-Lewin is there, although Richarlison is sort of usurping his place slightly in the stats. But anyway, these are the form players at the moment. So if they've got good fixtures as well, you want to be targeting them really. I don't know, in that list there, I mean, it's a hodgepodge of people. It's, the likes of Chris Wood there, but does any of those names appeal, Karam or Seb?
One that jumps out to me, I know, this isn't too inobvious at all, but Iheanacho, he's high on your list there, but also it's worth noting over the season that he has, and of course he's played many fewer minutes than other players, but he's played more recently. This is still holding up. He has, I think, the 3rd highest of players playing regularly mins per XGI of a 128.2, which is up there with Vardy. Vardy's a lot more expensive, and the only thing he really has over him is penalties, so you could save some money there. He's up there with Kane and Antonio, who are other, maybe Antonio's injured now, but other players I would seriously be looking at. So at least while they've got decent fixtures, or at least until we know that Maddison and or Barnes are going to change the way they're playing, I think he's a good one to have in for 1, 2, 3 fixtures. And then if you must, you bench him or transfer him out. He's only cheap.
Yeah, definitely. I remember on a Scoutcast years ago when he was when he was at City, and we were quite amazed at the time at where he was in the stats tables. His goal conversion was huge. I mean, he was often a sub, in the Jesus role of old, but he would come on and it was ridiculously clinical. And as we're seeing here, he still is. So I'm wondering if over a period of time he's retaining that clinical touch. So he scored 5 goals. He's had 7 shots inside the box, 6 of them on target, and 5 of them actually gone past the keeper. So this is ridiculously clinical. And some people will look at that and go, you're going to revert to the mean. He can't keep that up. But this is his mean. This is what he was like at City. He's just been a sub a lot. So I'm wondering.
And the future, the next fixtures support him to keep up this high conversion rate. It's going to be tricky a bit against West Ham, although Wolves, that I personally did not believe that they are strong in attack, have managed an XG of 2.5 yesterday. So I think Leicester can do some damage to West Ham defense. But then if you look at the fixtures afterwards, it's insane. I mean, you play West Brom, Crystal Palace, Southampton, and then Newcastle. So at least you've got to have a striker there. And I have Vardy, and I understand and appreciate the argument that you can save a lot of cash by going Iheanacho over Vardy, but why not having both? Now, the investment now and the wild card comes in a time when Maddison is back, and the first one who made way against City was Iheanacho, but you can understand that because he just played in Nigeria a few days before that, and he arrived like 48 hours before the game. So going forward with Barnes is still absent and Maddison back in the 11, how is the new formation would be? Would that be Ayuso Perez who drops out? Would that be Nacho who drops out? So it's still, we need one more game. I personally need one more game to be 100% sure with Iheanacho in the next 4 games. Although he is now in my team, I have made the transfer and I put him in. So if you are on a wild card, I think it's really valid argument to have both of them in a wild card because the fixtures are too good.
Maddison is a player I really want, but I don't think I can get him in. All various formations I've looked at, it's an annoying price for the way that my team is set up. And other people might find that. For other people, Maddison might be the perfect price, and that's just.
And there's
the way
more options up in midfield than up front. We think
there's too much.
You get Harry Kane, you get 2 others. Midfield, there's loads.
And there's cheaper alternatives to Maddison. So, and then you've got to factor in getting the defence as well. Let's have a look. Actually, before I go back to the checklist as well, I've got some stats here that I haven't put up on screen here, but it was something we were discussing on the captaincy video this morning. It just ties in with those questions about Liverpool defenders. Can Robertson cover Alexander Arnold? I don't think he can, because Alexander Arnold is on red hot form at the moment. So last 4 matches, he's created 11 chances, which is by far the most of any Liverpool player. I think the next nearest is Mane with 4. And then you look through, and he's had a couple of goal attempts as well, so he's obviously got an assist from that. His expected goal involvement is higher than Jota in terms of the minutes played, and just behind Mane and Salah, and better than Firmino's, which you would expect, because Firmino has not been a good fantasy asset for a long time now. But Alexander-Arnold definitely really strong. Salah is starting to get the volume of, so Salah's problem has always been goal conversion, but I say problem, but it's just such a huge volume of shots that some go in, and all you want is, like, say, if you get 3 of them go in a match, you've got a hat trick, so you've got a huge haul. So he's had 12 goal attempts, 7 of those inside the box, 4 on target. So these are okay. These are good. These are been studying. I don't know what being studying at the University of Salology. And this is fine stats. I feel steady with these Salah stats here. 12 shots, 7 inside the box, 4 on target. That's Salah. If he starts having like 2 shots over the last 4 matches, and then I start to worry. If he starts to have 20, then I think, whoa, he's really good. So this is prime Salah stuff. So anyway, let's move back.
Just on Trent and Robbo, if I may, just to add to your point. I think it's worth noting as well, we've established that Trent is looking pretty good, but over the season, he just about pips Robbo for XG, XA, all those numbers you'd want. For example, XG, Robbo has 1.33, Trent has 1.77, so not too much. Maybe you could make it up with a price difference. But then since game week 24, which I chose somewhat arbitrarily, but it shows a little turn in their form, Robertson has 0.2 XG and Trent has 0.47. And then in XA, that sort of ratio is reflected again, which shows that not only has Trent been better over the season, but he's possibly accelerating away from Robertson at the moment. So if their defence is improving, if their creative chances are improving, it really is Trent Alexander-Arnold that is the one doing that.
He is the absolute top of the list of players I want but don't have. But I have a wild card, so surely I should have him if he's top of that list, which is something I'll discuss a little bit later. So let's have a look at the wildcard checklist. So we went, is it the right time? Fixtures, form. And this is another one of my things I get, which is about price points. And price points aren't rigid. It's essentially this rule. Can I get any other player that I don't have within 2 moves? And the Alexander-Arnold one I discussed. So say, for example, I have Son and Phillips in 2 moves. So that's either a hit over 2 weeks or 2 free transfers. I can get Alexander-Arnold for Phillips and Rafinha in for Son. That's a nice, easy move to make. I look at my wildcards, my wildcard, which in its version that I put up earlier in our notes, and I think I can get any player within 2 moves still. And if I can't do that, then I worry a bit, because especially if it's a player I definitely want. So this is why Salah is definitely in my wildcard team. And if he doesn't, I need to make sure I can get him in quick. And what I don't want, so for example, what I don't want is lots and lots of expensive strikers, lots of who I want to keep, and then spreading all my budget around the side. And I can't quite get to Salah without a bit of surgery, maybe 3 moves. And I don't want to get that. I want to better get him in 1 or 2 moves. And so that's something to take into account.
If you had to choose one of Jota and Salah, and obviously it's not a question in isolation because it impacts the rest of your team, especially with price. I originally very much would have said Jota. But I'm wondering, you've got the numbers there. If you can manage it with price, and I really do want Trent, I wonder if I fancy Salah that little bit more, even if it's just because I think Jota is starting tonight in the Champions League and Firmino isn't. I don't know what that means for the weekend. And we saw all 4 of them on the pitch last weekend, and Jota did well. He only had 2 shots, but he scored 2 goals. Yeah. He was playing number 9, I believe. But I wonder if I could afford it, I would just get Salah, leave it there and be happy. The reason I originally maybe wanted Jota, other than just price, is that captaincy. I'd want to make sure I was going to captain Salah if I had it. Because at that price, I need to double the points. Otherwise, he's not worth it. So maybe we're thinking, because Harry Kane's a good captain quite a few times, we need to look at who we're going to captain.
And the fixtures for the Liverpool, there are some decent game weeks where you might captain a Liverpool player. And if I have only Jota, then I wouldn't be as confident as if I captain Salah, just because I know that Salah will play pretty much every game. On current form, it seems that Jota is involved in approximately 50% of all Liverpool goals when he's playing, and that's decent. So if you see beforehand the team sheet and Jota is in, happy days. I'm happy to captain him, but because I don't, and as far as I can see now, Liverpool are 2 goals behind in against Real Madrid. I don't actually trust Jota to play against, say, the next game week against Villa. And so if I want to captain a Liverpool player, I might captain Salah if I want to, rather than Jota, just because of that reason. But I still think that having both of them over 2 defenders is the way, at least for me, just because of the upside that both of them can give you. If you are chasing, then many managers will go for one attacker, so you might get that opportunity to have 2 attackers and make like potentially bigger gains. But I totally get the argument of going for Phillips plus Trent as well.
So for example, with Alexander Arnold, so Liverpool concede. They have many times this season, so they concede. So you're looking at Alexander Arnold for those assists. He hasn't got that strong goal scoring potential at the moment, but he's definitely got the assist potential there. So then you're looking at assists. But whereas with Jota, if you see he's not in the starting lineup and he comes on in the 80th minute, I'm still not worried, because he could still score 1 or 2 goals, because that's the sort of player he is. Super sub. So I'm happy if he starts. I'm okay if he doesn't, because I know I'm fairly certain he will get minutes as well. But it comes back to the captaincy. I'll come to the captaincy shortly. But would I captain Jota? No. Would I captain Salah? Yes. Would I captain Alexander Arnold? Probably no. But he's definitely in the thoughts. Looking back at the wildcarding checklist as well. So those wildcarding now, future, whenever, does it take into account future blanks and doubles? So I mean, both of you mentioned in your previous wildcards that obviously we went through blanks and double game weeks, and that was a factor. But your wildcard and the personnel you have has to take that into account. So the previous lot, obviously Leeds were absolutely key. They're less key for this one. But other players are. Spurs are obviously key. Game week 32 double. And now I'm going to read this out, but I'm not sure whether it's right, because I do tend to glaze over a bit with fixtures. It's a bit of a paradox. I love planning and all these guns, looking into the future. But when people start mentioning about fixtures and this has got to move here and they can't do that because it's televised, and I just glaze over. It's just like reading the phone book to me sometimes. But as far as I know, I think so. People can glaze over here. So I think, as far as I know, Aston Villa, Everton, Southampton they've definitely got a double coming up, and it should be in game week 35, we think. Chelsea and Leicester, well, at least one of them could as well, I think, because game week 36 is the FA Cup or something to do with that, or the League Cup. I don't know. As I said, I glaze over with these things, but Chelsea, Leicester, possibility. City, Brighton, Leeds, Crystal Palace, all possibilities for game week 35 double. Might not. They could do. Have I got that right? I mean, as I said, I do tend to glaze over. So
I mean, you sent it to me earlier, so I'm just going to nod and pretend I look smart. But I would say, we were talking about, you may be planning for some transfers earlier or whether you should save them. I guess that for me, that's just another reason as maybe why, if you're wildcarding now, you probably want at the very least, and if you don't have the free hit, you want 2 free transfers in your pocket for that week.
Yes.
So I would say, and we know there's a bit of a fixture swing as well about 34, 35. I would say you probably want to make a wild card now that you can carry 2 transfers with. Yes. So someone like Rafinha, maybe, I know it's a while until he has good fixtures, but you hold him. Maybe your plan of, losing Son, Son to someone and then bringing in
Son
Trent
to Rafinha and then Phillips to Trent. If I think
I guess very good. And so I would say I would probably just do that now. If you want Son, maybe find another way of getting Son.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the right way to go, but it feels you don't want.
I don't even
just
want.
Don't have him then. Don't have him.
Well,
then.
I don't want him.
I think,
but I think I might need him because he's got a double game week. So that's what goes through people's mind. But
I'm not going to pretend that I know the schedule, but I think that the FA Cup final is going to be on the 37, and so there will be few games to be rearranged.
Yeah.
And ideally, you would have to move it to the same midweek, so they remain in the same fixture. But because of the new UK regulation, potentially that allow each team to have a game at home, those games from that game week will be rearranged earlier to 35. So that's why we are talking about the potential of having a double game week in 35, and that's all permutations. Don't have concrete info yet, but yeah, that's more or less about it. Yeah.
So as you can see, I mean, especially with me,
a lot of noise.
I'm not one of those experts on the fixtures coming up, and so I've got to make a wild card that does take into account something I don't know. So I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to run headlong, Leroy Jenkins style, just go absolutely for it and just hope for the best.
And that's why when I talked about the other possibility in 34 to wildcard in 34, you will probably have a clearer idea on how the double game week in 35 will look like, and therefore you might put it there.
Yeah, I believe we should get them on the eve. I believe we should get them on the eve of 34, so you would know.
So those
whether you're saving transfers.
So
or
those that are considering those that are considering wildcarding now, but actually have an okay team, can say move a couple of Leeds players out or something like that, and just in a couple of moves have their team okay. It is worth waiting till game week 34. I don't particularly want to. I want to use it now because I want to get a good 8 or 9 weeks out of it. I don't want just 4 weeks. But for some people, if your team's in good shape and you've got your rank is doing well, just wait, because you're going to get so much information and you can really attack game week 35 then, or the doubles or the blanks, and arrange that. Another thing I've got to take into account, I haven't listed it here because this isn't going to apply to everyone, it's just me. I've still got a bench boost left. So I need to take into account future blanks and doubles that I don't know or have any understanding of, and it bores me rigid. At the same time, plan it so well that my bench boost is optimized for it. It's impossible. So I'm just going to, as I said, I'm just going to run with it and hope for the best. The final thing on the wildcarding checklist is something we will know, really, is have I got good captains? So these are the captains that we relied on. And we've alluded to it before with Liverpool. Would we captain Jota? Would we captain Alexander-Arnold? Would we captain Phillips? Would we captain Salah? Yes. So looking at the captain, I've consulted the Rate My Team computer for this. And so I looked at who has the best ratings, predicted ratings. This has all sorts of things in the algorithm here, and it comes out with a figure. And in terms of over the next remaining fixtures, who is the best players, so therefore who will be the best captain, who will get the best score in each week. It's either Salah or Kane for most of the weeks up until game week 37 when it becomes Fernandes. But in the meantime, Fernandes is still a great captaincy shout. There's just Kane and Salah are good as well. So if you've got Salah, Fernandes and Kane, for most of the weeks, you've got 3 of the best captaincy shouts. If you think City are going to rotate, you've got 3 of the best captaincy shouts there. And so that's a great, one of the questions earlier was about swords and shields. There's your shields, done and dusted. And you don't have to worry about captaincy, just captain one of them. Chances are they're going to do well. I put Mane is in the list as well. So we think Mane is going to improve. He is a differential captaincy option. But we can see, I think it's obviously game week 33. Kane's not playing, so he's not an option there. Hey presto, Salah's the best one. Fernandes not too bad either. It goes on like that really. Game week 31. Rate My Team crew says just telling me forget all the jiggery pokery and doing all the fancy planning. Just Captain Salah is saying. Often it's right, so it's very, very specifically right for there. And sometimes it'll recommend a captain. I'll just go, that's a bit boring. And then that captain will come in with a double-digit haul. How many times have we seen that with Fernandes? So that's another thing I'm considering and other people want to consider. Have a look at something like the Rate My Team computer and have a look at the predicted scores coming up. Do you have those top captains for that week? All of those weeks are covered if I've got at least 2 of those. Kane or Fernandes, Salah. I think out of the 3 of them, I think Fernandes is probably the lesser of Salah. I think Salah and Kane are just really key for the captaincy. I don't know. What do you two think about captains? Do you have in your head with your non-Wildcardy team who you're going to captain each week until the game week 38?
Well, to me, I haven't planned until the end of the season, but I think at least for the next few game weeks, there are some decent options. I think the trickiest of them is next game week, actually, because captaincy is really up in the air. You can draw KDB, you can draw for, I don't know, Fernandes or Kane, depends how you think of the game would look like, whether it's a faced roll or it's a nil-nil or written all over it. But for the next game weeks, we pretty much are going for Kane or Son for the double game week. 33 is going to be an interesting one. If you are invested in Liverpool, then you might drop against Newcastle. And so you'd like to think that you will have on your wild card between 2 to 3 captain options between now and end of the season, just to have that easy flexibility to decide which one you want to go for. And it helps you a lot in deciding which players you would pick. 33, I'm looking at Vardy, for example, who is playing Crystal Palace at home. He's going to be another option. So looking at those premiums, there are a lot of options, to be fair. Start from game week 33, because 32 is kind of a clear, but you can also draw for different captains in 32, like Vardy against West Brom, still an option. I think one of the key reasons to, of course, when you key things to consider when you wildcard is to have a couple of captain options that you are pretty much set on, pending some major news during that period with someone injured or goes out of form or whatever. But yeah, so that's pretty much about the captaincy. Okay. So Liverpool, Leicester, could be Kane and City going forward for the next.
So City in the mix for you. Seb, are you?
Yeah.
What do you
could
think?
Could be Aguero in 38 or something like that.
And Seb, what about your captaincy considerations up until 38? Who's in the mix?
Well, you're totally captaining Aguero in 38. We know it's happening.
I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I
did it on
doing it.
that game, the great game. You know, the great swinging the shirt round game. And so I was I'm not a City fan, but I was so happy because I got a goal finally from my captain, and it didn't look like I was.
Wasn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that game, obviously not only did Aguero clinch the title for City there, but didn't it also clinch the FPL title for someone? Wasn't someone relying on a point swing in that moment to also win the thing? That's brilliant.
That's often it. I mean, I remember, I've never won FPL, obviously, but I did really particularly well one year where I won lots of cups and things in a final game, and it was Drogba. And it was when Lampard handed the penalty to Drogba so he could get the golden boot and a hat-trick. In my head, for me, my FPL team.
So he could win you your cups, Joe.
And so in FPL, I like those kinds of things. Going for the golden boot. That's the other thing to mention as well. I mean, Aguero, it's not the golden boot, but it's it's a huge match for him. He's going to start. He's going to get clapped off so in the 80th minute, something like that, and everyone's going to want him to score, but Salah and Kane are in the mix for the golden boot this year. They're going to be competing against each other. They are both. I mean, they're both those clinical, selfish strikers that they care about these things as they should. Yeah. So they're going to go for it.
We'll probably cover it a bit when we talk about Lingard shortly, but I'm a big proponent of stats, and I like things that I can measure and are tangible and I can predict with. But it's absolutely fair enough to say put Salah or Kane up there and go, okay, look, I know they've got great stats or great fixtures or whatever, but there's also that intangible of, well, they might just want it a bit more. Are they going to run that extra yard? Are they going to nick a penalty off? So, I mean, they both take penalties, but you know what I mean. Are they really going to go for it in a way that is hard to quantify, but you can factor it into your thinking if you say, look, okay, maybe Tottenham are out of everything and don't care, so we could ignore Tottenham, but oh wait, Harry Kane's going for the golden boot, so maybe I do want him. Yeah. And I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, definitely. And so in seasons past, I have had the likes of Drogba, Van Persie, towards the end, the ones that are going for the golden boot. And obviously we've seen with Kane and Salah recently. With all of that in mind, here's my wildcard. So this is my wildcard as of midday. It's completely different now. So I'm not going to put the latest one on because it changes all the time, because it's all about juggling money at the moment. So I'll just preface this to say that currently Son and Calvert-Lewin are not in my wildcard team currently. I'm not saying they're not going to come back again, but because Son might go down in price tonight and I'll lose money on him, so they're out, and Calvert-Lewin is he's shipping owners as well. And in comes Vardy and Neto, who are players who I might get in, but I might not. But Vardy also gives me the option to possibly get Aguero or Jesus in to captain this week. So with that in mind, here is my wildcard team as of about midday. So as I've said, Calvert-Lewin isn't there at the moment. Vardy is. Son isn't there. Neto is. So I've got Leno and Forster. 4 million Forster starting for Southampton. I've got Rudiger, Shaw. We were talking about targeting the best defences, Chelsea and Manchester United. I've got Phillips as 4. I can't get to Alexander Arnold. Phillips is the one I want, but I have got an Alexander Arnold entry plan. Cody, the Wolves defender. I think I'm still intrigued by the fact that he's been told to get up and attack, because it has never happened.
I have something
before.
about Cody.
Oh, good.
Something about Cody to
good
mention.
stuff. I've also got Rob Holding in, because it looks like David Luiz is out. I need to find out whether David Luiz is definitely out for a while, because when David Luiz is out, Holding tends to play. And in the Sky managers will know what I'm talking about here. Because when David Luiz was out before periods, Rob Holding came in and he was a legend. He was a legend in the Sky game, because he gets loads of other passing, tackling bonus. But anyway, he's a starting for Arsenal. Have great fixtures. And although they've just got beaten by Liverpool, they have great fixtures. And he's cheap, 4.2. I've got Salah. I've currently got Lingard, but he could become Gundogan. I've got Fernandes. I haven't got Son, but I could have Son. I've got Jota, Calvert-Lewin or Vardy, Iheanacho and Kane. So out of that lot, likely to remain is Shaw, Fernandes, Forster, Jota, Iheanacho and Kane. And that's mainly on value and captaincy, as we talked about there. And of course Salah is likely to remain as well. And there for the price but may stay list is Holding, Cody, Leno, Phillips, Lingard, Calvert-Lewin, Son. I mean, all of these are up for grabs basically, and I'm not wedded to them. And the various plans I could have is around City and the captaincy. At the moment, Salah or Kane or Fernandes are options, but I'm not overly happy with any of them for this week. Because of their fixtures, but I do like City, and especially like the fact that Sterling, Aguero and Jesus were rested tonight in the Champions League. So for my particular system, I think Gundogan in and captained instead of Lingard is a nice safe move. I am quite intrigued by getting Jesus in and captaining Jesus, who is the form City player at the moment, and then immediately moving him out.
And then Jesus' conversion is often poor, I think.
And then he gets benched anyway.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong for your sake, but Jesus feels a bit like a trap. It feels like one of those. Oh, he didn't play tonight, and he could not play the next 3 matches.
He could not play. Yeah, he could not play for a year. He could play every game. You just don't know. So I am quite intrigued by that, mainly because it enables me to get Vardy in, and as Karam mentioned, Vardy is another in the captaincy shout. So to own in a week 4 or 5 potential captains, that's what I've just come out of. So you should get at least an above average score then each week. So yeah, there's some issues there. I'll come to see what both of you think in a sec. But my current issues are either 3-5-2 with Alexander Arnold and having a non-playing third striker, so like Davis or Brewster. Or, as soon as I say the names, I'm not interested. Or 3-4-3 without, which I think is going to be better for my potential bench boost whenever I use it. Bench boost still to play. The chip I hate, but I've still got to use it. Game week 35, I have to consider. This is why I initially had Calvert-Lewin in. I think I'm going to, with Everton, Southampton and Aston Villa, I'm going to want at least one of Calvert-Lewin, Watkins or Ings for their double. So I want a sort of upper mid-priced striker there. So obviously Vardy fits the bill because Vardy can come down to one of those. Blank 36, so there could be a blank fixture in 36 as well to consider. Home fan rearrangement I put in here, so that's all tied up with those future fixtures. City captaincy in 31 is considered. I don't want to rip up my team for that, which Jesus could be, but at the same time, so I think Lingard for Gundogan in captain instead of Lingard. That's probably if Gundogan very likely will not come on at all, or he'll come on and do something, or start and do something. But I'm okay captaining him and then vice captaining Salah, for example.
The one thing we've seen with City, I mean, it's worth watching, what happens tonight. But the one thing we've seen Guardiola change a bit is instead of rotating, say, during a match, so someone comes off at 60, someone comes on for the final half hour, what have you. He seems to be giving people 90s, sometimes not even making all his subs, and then making more changes.
And then miss out.
Yeah.
And so, and the other thing I've just written down my issues is something that Seb mentioned earlier, is this Leeds fixture swing in 36. Leicester, Wolves, Chelsea. There's a variety of assets who can make way. Then it's a nice change in the fixtures. So I have to sort of plan for that. So with all that in mind, and my team as it is at the moment, what do either of you think?
Well, there is a question from the chat and from me as well. Where is Man City in your team, Joe? I think at least you've got to have Diaz. I look at the fixtures and I don't see any team scoring against City. Even though they have the blank 33, you can bench him. I still think that you need more than Rudiger in your Chelsea defense. I wouldn't really read too much into the results of West Brom.
Just one thing to note is when it says money remaining, have a just check out that figure there. So yes, I would love to have Azpilicueta, Alexander Arnold. I would like to have 3 City, whatever, I just can't afford them all. Diaz. A back three of Diaz, Alexander Arnold, and Azpilicueta would be great with Shaw as well. I can't. I'm on 0.0, but yeah, I completely agree. I think Diaz though. I mean, what am I going to get from Diaz? Am I going to get assists? Am I going to get goals? Am I going to get anything above 6 points?
Might be too much to say, but out of the next 4, 6, 7 games remaining, you might get 42 points of a clean sheet. I mean, he's very consistent, and he doesn't know a rest. He's gonna be benched next game week, and then he is. I think the City defense has proved, along with the Chelsea take away West Brom game, have proved to be the most likely teams to keep a clean sheet regardless of the opposition. And therefore, you look at, I don't know if you sold them, you convert the transfer, he will cost you maybe 6 million or so. But with that, you get consistent points over the next game weeks. And if he's the only investment in your team, then you might bench him in 33. Depends how you plan things up. But I totally get that the other options are good as well.
I mean, the other thing that puts me off Diaz slightly is just. I mean, I've had Ederson since January or so, and Ederson's been great. But he's also only got me 5 or 6 points every week. And I think over a period of time, 5 or 6 points from a player. If he's cost 6 million and he's averaging 5 or 6 points a match, that's great. But with nine matches left, I want a little bit more, and either value to invest elsewhere. So, for example, Holding and Phillips, both 4.2. That extra money, that extra 2 million, can go into making sure I get Salah and Fernandes captaincy shouts on Kane. But whereas,
do you want double Arsenal defence though? You showed us earlier how Arsenal's defence isn't the best, but they've got good fixtures, and I think good defensive fixtures too. But do you want 2 of them?
Well, when will I need to? I will need to in a potential bench boost week, which will be coming up at some point. So I'll basically be structuring my whole 9 weeks based on possibly using a bench boost when Arsenal may or may not get a clean sheet 1 week. So Holding, and so towards the end of the show, I'll put my team up at the moment. But Holding is just. He's going to be on the bench virtually all the time, but he does play as well. So yeah, do I want double Arsenal? No. If it was David Luiz and Leno every week, no. The other thing I like about Leno and Forster is they do have a very nice rotation. When Leno has got, I think they've only got 2 bad fixtures. Put the fixtures back up. The remaining fixtures. So Arsenal, and game week 33 they've got Everton, and game week 36 they've got Chelsea, and Southampton have got by coincidence. Oh no, that's it. Game week 33 I have to play Leno in there, but it's game week 36 is the tricky one where they play Chelsea, and then looking down, yeah, that's right. Southampton play Fulham then, and of course Southampton have a double game week. So that's why Forster's definitely in. But no, Leno's not nailed. Could be Patricio. I had toyed with that, but then we've seen with the Wolves defence.
Or Mendy.
Yeah,
how much is Patricio? Is
5.3, so he's more. And I can get, if I want Wolves defence, I can get Cody in for that, who's also not nailed. But also looking at that, what I've got there, I would like to actually have Mendy at Chelsea, but then I can get Rudiger for less. And what will Mendy get me more than Rudiger? And
you need to check that obviously Rudiger's back in, because he was out of the weekend, apparently a bust up maybe. So I just want to check he's back in.
I think he's going to play tomorrow for sure. And Tuchel said it's sorted out. So I think he will be back. Not after conceding 5. I think he would put him back.
There was lots of talk about that on the radio over the weekend, lots of ex-pros just saying this is completely normal. Every week 2 players will have a bit of a bust up and they'll at least have a heated argument or it'll come to blows, and then they have to get separated. That happens every training session. But they said the interesting thing about it is that it got leaked, and when those incidents get leaked, and they get leaked in a way that's manufactured as part of a narrative, which is of course they've just lost 5-2 to West Brom, then that becomes an issue. So
although worth noting that obviously it did mean he missed out on the team, so it's not just if they happen every week, we don't see someone dropped every week. So clearly this one, if it had nothing to do with the bust up, I'd say that's more of a concern if he is a rotation risk. Of course, Silva I think will be suspended for a match now. So
I think Rudiger would. He was very unlikely to play last week anyway, because of his minutes on international duty. So there's all sorts of factors there, but I don't know. I
guess the last thing for me on
can I ask about
oh yeah, go ahead.
Just last note on the goalkeepers and defenders. Apparently we are saying goodbye to Martinez, who have a horrible run of games, but a double game week, a lot of save points. If he got 4 points already against Fulham, making 6 saves, I think he can do the same against every other team. So for those who don't have the wild card, do you see it urgent to sell Martinez to one of those goalkeepers we just mentioned?
I have toyed with the idea of getting Martinez in. Martinez and Forster is also, it's not a bad combination to have in. As we said, Martinez, is he fixture proof because of the save points? And I wasn't initially put off by, he's got essentially a couple of bad games coming up, and then he's got a couple towards the end. But the fixtures are a bit patchy really in the middle. They're okay. But it's just the price really. You can see I've got 0.0 and Martinez is 5.4, I think. So then I've got to shave 4 off somewhere. And if you've already got a team with Holding and Phillips as well, where do you shave the 4 off? So you've got to keep going down.
Well, that was going to be my question. So you have Salah, Fernandes in midfield, so I know you may want to plan on transferring him out. I'd still encourage you not to plan too many transfers. After this, you've got 4 transfers until that double. A couple of injuries could cause some trouble for you there. I'd want to save some, but let's say you're set on that. I wonder. I was just looking at the fixtures. If I had Fernandes, I would maybe only captain him in 37 against Fulham. Until then, I'd be captaining other players. I believe it may rely on a City player being available next week. Of course, I've got KDB at the moment. But do I just want to carry Fernandes, who, while over the course of the season, his stats are amazing and his points are amazing, but have tailed off recently? I say that he got an assist the other night and could well have scored a goal. Actually, he kind of fluffed the chance, but it has tailed off a little bit. If you want him there just to keep ticking those points over, fair enough. But if you need him to get the captain's armband to really get your value out of him, I wonder if you move him down and put the funds elsewhere.
I might be influenced by last season, but around this time last season, I removed Fernandes, and he carried on doing what he always does. Chips away at points, maybe get a double-digit haul, might get 7 points, 5 points. And even with 5 points, if you haven't got Fernandes, It's horrible, the effective ownership.
I've not had Fernandes since game week 24.
And yes, you've halved your rank,
so
but
doesn't mean going forward I'll do okay.
Yeah, but you chip away at the gains you make elsewhere by what I want to do is have the swords and the shields. I want the shields, and then I want the swords to do their business. So I can protect the rank with the shields. I can attack the rank with the swords. But you take away a good shield, and suddenly you're attacking, and you're attacking, and then you get chipped away. And I've seen it, and it's one of the annoying things of having too much information. But live FPL is just too good as an asset to use, and you can see it with Fernandes. If you don't own him, or if you don't captain him, you're looking at a rank fall. If it's just a handful of points just for that moment, and if the player that you've got in doesn't kick off, then if your sword doesn't work that week, so you're betting not only on your sword beating that shield, but you're betting on Fernandes not doing anything, and he does everything. He does something every week. So you're just betting against a sure thing.
Yeah. Speaking about this, I know there is an argument on social media whether you have to consider the effective ownership in your decisions or not, or you have to play your own game, your own game. I think in the ideal world, it probably shouldn't be a decisive in your decision, but I play with my emotions sometimes. And Bruno, last game week, his EO around me was 114, where I expected everybody to captain KDB or Rafinha or Leeds. So when Fernandes got 5 points, I lost 1 point in my rank. And so imagine if I don't have him at all.
Yeah.
If he coughs, I will lose rank. If he assists, I will lose rank. If he scores, I would lose a lot of rank. So I don't think that Bruno is necessarily my biggest problem to dump. I do appreciate that it could be a golden opportunity if he struggles in the next game weeks, FPL wise, and you make up the points from your alternative. But it's too risky that not many people might be willing to take. But I don't say that it is like this.
I mean, I prefer to lose Shaw than Fernandes.
Yeah,
you're not wedded to him.
But Seb, Seb, a quick note: when you went without Fernandes the last 5, 6, 7 game weeks, how did you manage emotionally and rank-wise? How did it go for you without Bruno for the last weeks?
I've not had Salah or Fernandes since game week 24 on my wildcard. And but that meant I had KDB, I had Bale and Son and Kane at a time when others may have had just a single or two Spurs players. That went well for me. I would say I pay less attention to effective ownership than a lot of other people. Doesn't mean you shouldn't. And at a time like this, early in the season, I don't think it really matters at all. You pick the players you think are going to score the most points. Of course, we don't know that ahead of time, so maybe there is some wisdom in the crowd. But at this point in the season, sure, if you're trying to protect him in a league, then you look at who the other people in your league have got. You maybe try and move, as you say, Joe, your shields against them. Yeah. If you're in the top 1K, top 10K, whatever your target is, maybe then you're trying to defend. Or if you're outside the top 100K, you're trying to attack a position. I think maybe in these last 8 or 9 game weeks, this is the time to pay attention to it, because it's when that risk-reward equation really does have a noticeable difference to the decisions you'll make and the outcome you'll receive in terms of rank. But that being said, you're telling me if Fernandes gets 5 points every week, well, Jesse Lingard is currently out doing that. Come on to him again, but for a lot less money. 5 points isn't stellar. If I think I can beat 5 points, doesn't matter what the ownership is, I will try and play that game. The difference, of course, is because we don't know definitely what points people are going to get, you have to choose whether you want to be a bit safer or a bit riskier. But I think people maybe put a little bit too much weight on the effective ownership argument, as opposed to just trying to pick who we think has the best fixture or the best possibility of returning.
For me, it's just simply, as we do each week with each player, it's just gambling on each player. Will they do well, won't they? And it's just Fernandes is it's almost like it's just betting against a sure thing. And that's how I feel with him. And he's just so annoyingly good and so annoyingly consistent. And I feel like a flashback to this time the Scoutcast last season, where I think every week I said, I wish Fernandes would go away. I don't want him anymore. It's really boring. And You know, you can't get if you get rid of him.
Yeah,
you know, you might get some rank rises. But you're not going to get massive. You're not going to get huge rank rises. But if you get rid of him, you can get quite big. You can get big rank falls.
I mean, I guess the real question is what you do with the rest of the team. So if you've got him, like you say, he's just a steady ship there. And hey, he can explode. He could get a goal and a penalty, an assist in one match. But everyone else will get those points as well, as you've argued for.
Yeah.
So the question really is, what are you doing with the funds elsewhere, or who else are you giving the captain to? Or if you do have him, where are you suffering? Maybe that's where the difference is made, right? Not Fernandes himself.
Exactly. So I look at, you know, who am I missing out on? Who could get that point? So if I didn't have Fernandes, I would have... I think it would be Alexander Arnold over Phillips. And possibly Vardy I might better squeeze in. But I would still have to cut a few corners elsewhere, I think.
So would you not consider KDB pretty much at all?
No.
Just because you're not sure he's going to
play?
No,
because Fernandes is chipping away, getting points, and is nailed on to start, and is captainable. KDB, in theory, is captainable, but is he nailed on to start? Will his minutes get managed? Man City are in what, 4 competitions at the moment? And Pep goes for all of them. So it's a question of, do I trust him with the armband? Yeah. Do I think KDB's a great option? Obviously, but do I think he's as good as Fernandes in terms of the captaincy? No. I barely had. No, I have had. I've had KDB for periods. I've not had him for periods. To be honest, I don't think he's made any difference to my rank particularly. I don't think there's any. I can't think of anyone over a period of time who would be better to have than Fernandes that I haven't already got in Salah and Kane.
So in terms of stats over the season, KDB's got 125.9 minutes per XGI and Bruno Fernandes has got 120.5. Salah separates them with 124.6. Those are the top 3 for midfielders of regular minute players who play regular minutes. Obviously, the returns so far this season have been poorer for De Bruyne. Both Fernandes and De Bruyne have got 11 assists, but Fernandes has, I've got 16 goals here. That seems massive. And De Bruyne has 5. So there's the difference. But then going forward, we are seeing De Bruyne score a bit more. Maybe Fernandes is dropping off a little. Potentially De Bruyne is on penalties. Fernandes, of course, is. Depends on if Aguero is on the pitch. Maybe Gundogan takes 1 or 2. I think the big thing, like you say, is the fixtures. So I was just having a quick look at what's to come. City tonight 1-0 up against Dortmund. De Bruyne has scored. They have Leeds at the weekend, which is a great fixture, you think, for a City player. It was 1-1 earlier in the season. Leeds actually had the better numbers in that game, but a lot has changed since then. Leeds have become a little less attacking, a little less forcing ourselves on the opposition, and City have improved. So I would expect City to win that quite easily. Then it's Dortmund again next midweek. At the moment, it's only 1-0, so City are going to need to put a strong team out there against Dortmund. Then they've got the FA Cup and the EFL Cup separated by Villa in the Premier League. So I think while De Bruyne is so important to City, and Karam, you can share more on this, I think in the next few weeks, maybe there is a chance he plays 50% of the fixtures. I'd like to think more, but maybe I'm hoping there.
Well, I was going to also say, because once again, I'm thinking captaincy here as well. Fernandes, whilst, I think, Salah and Kane are good options for any week, but Fernandes is still in the mix there. He's still a player in the mix for the captaincy. And Conrad sent me on Twitter this really great, really simple little table he's done. It's brilliant. And it's got, it's on double digit hauls and also, how many times they blanked or so. But Fernandes is in a world of his own. Double digit hauls. He's had 11 this season. So that's a player I want to captain. He's reliable. He's often my bus captain in case the worst happens, because I know I can rely on him. He's had 11 double-digit hauls, which is absolutely great. So the next nearest is 9 with Son, and then you've got Kane with 7. So in terms of captaincy, which is what you want mega scores there, he's the one. And Kevin De Bruyne is quite low down there with just 5. Obviously, there's been injury to do with that, but this is what I mean by the captaincy. Injury and rotation are the cause of that. And so with the captaincy, you have to factor in injuries and rotations. And Fernandes is just always fit, and he just comes on the pitch and gets the points. So
no, I think that's fair, especially on injury and rotation. Yeah. The only thing I'd say on those double-digit hauls, and that's quite a nice way of looking at it, because really you throw all the stats together you want. It's points we want, and when you're captaining someone, it's points all in one go that we want, right? We want to double big numbers. I would say that the only thing that does, of course, show is it's just looking retrospectively of things that have already happened. doesn't necessarily predict what will happen in the future. I think a better guide for that is the underlying numbers, where De Bruyne and Fernandes are a lot closer. The expected goals, minutes per expected goals, are 208 for De Bruyne and 190 for Fernandes. So Fernandes still wins, but it is a bit closer.
But then you have to factor in, Fernandes has been doing since he stepped on the pitch. Well, it actually was the second game, because I got him in on the second, I think the second or third game last season. He's been doing that consistently for a longer period of time. Obviously, De Bruyne has been doing it for a long period of time as well. But you have to factor in the rotation, and then it makes me question the captaincy. And it's something, I mean, both of you alluded to, and we play this game for fun, and do we enjoy? Karam was asking about, how do you mentally prepare for these things? I've only got 9 weeks of this tricky season left, and do I want to spend every week, or any of those weeks, even one of those weeks, sweating on Pep's blooming team sheet and who he's going to play? I'm probably going to do it this week with Gundogan, but I don't want to be doing it with an 11 million player who I haven't got Fernandes in because of. So it would spoil my game, put it that way.
Hey, fair enough. That's important. I was gonna say, possibly slightly harshly, like, oh, you turn your phone off, go outside, whatever. But really, we enjoy football, we watch football, we play FPL to enhance our experience of football. Yeah, fair enough. Unless you're going to win FPL, maybe damaging your mental health over stressing over a captain isn't worth your time.
To be honest, if I was in the top 10 at the moment, then I would actually be more prepared to consider that, because then you've got to go for it. Because if you're in the top 10, you're like, oh God, I could win this if I did something amazing. So you can't just like tick along like I'm doing, like get Fernandes in. You've got to do something pretty amazing. And so then I would start thinking, well, I'm just going to bet that Pep's going to play him, but he might not. And I don't want to go through that every week. So anyway, hopefully, I mean, do either of you want to add anything else before we move on? Because hopefully we've covered most things on the wildcard. And as I said, I'm not wedded to any of them. I'm quite passionate about Fernandes, but the rest of them,
really, I can tell you.
The rest of them, I'm not madly wedded on. So I'm not gonna die on a Cody-shaped hill. Put it that way.
The only thing, I've said this a million times now, so I promise I'll stop. But the only thing I would say is, careful with planning those transfers. I feel like we're going to hear from you in 4 weeks and go, I wish I had a transfer.
Do you know what? I think that is a good piece of advice, and which is why I am starting to think certain things. I think the Jesus Vardy hokey cokey there, that's just not going to happen really. And I think having Gundogan in for Lingard is a nice easy one for me, because I can easily bench Gundogan, Son and Kane, and I could actually be looking at saving a transfer in 32. Just keep saving a transfer until those final ones. So that would probably be the most sensible thing to do. So that is a good takeaway for me, and hopefully that's a good takeaway for other people as well. Is not planning transfers. So just before we move on,
can I mention something? Because I promised to mention it. I appreciate we are probably doing a bit late, a longer Scoutcast. But speaking about the defenses, I wanted to mention Wolves, because there's been a talk about their defense, whether we should consider or don't consider any of them, especially after the game against West Ham. I just noticed two things. First of all, Wolves this year have kept 8 clean sheets this season, and it's not really a bad thing for them. Last season they kept 9, and the year before, where they were massively good, they kept 13. And if you look at the next game week, they play, let me put it up in the screen, they play Fulham, and then I lost the way. Yeah, they play Fulham, Sheffield United, West Brom, and Burnley in the next set of fixtures. I just want to mention Cody, because we've seen in recent weeks that he is offering some goal threat.
Okay.
And if you look at the stats, the last 4 matches, the highest expected goals involvement for defenders is Alonso, followed by Justin, but he's injured. That's 4 matches. That's why Justin is up there. TA, Cancelo, Digne, and Cody with 1 goal expected involvement. And look at the teams he's up against from shots conceded from set plays. The worst is Fulham with 19. That's the worst. Sheffield United, 4th worst. West Brom 6th worst, and Burnley 7th worst. So he is going to play
This is Cody time.
4 games against. This is Cody time, or size time.
I will die on a Cody-shaped hill then.
Yeah, here you go. So he's up against 4 teams who are in the worst 7 from sit play, and from chances conceded from sit plays, and that's full well with Cody plus the potential for a clean sheet. So they played West Ham, who are going to Champions League this season potentially. So I still think I will go for one. Especially Cody, if you need a Wolves cover. So that's something I thought it's worth checking.
Just before we move on to some other community questions as well, I've got 2 takeaways here. Cody's just become a bit more nailed on. But the other one, I would add to this wildcarding checklist, if I was more techno, I would be able to say techno. Technological, I meant to say. But why not if I was more techno? I would add in the point that Seb made there about not booking in too many transfers. And I think that is a really good takeaway when checking on your wildcard checklist. So let's move on to some more community questions. Seb, what else have the community been asking us about?
Sure. So I figure maybe tackling these in a couple of bunches is the best. We have Vaza, who asks, is Robertson a good alternative to TAA? And Dunastog, who says, is TAA worth investing 7.3 for assist potential when Phillips looks nailed at 4 million, which is 3.3 million less, and obviously will have the same clean sheet potential? I think it would probably be fair to say we've answered those. I think clearly Trent is above Robertson, and there's only a small price difference. So unless you're really stuck there for cash, go with Trent. And then in terms of Phillips versus Trent, would it be fair to say it depends on the situation of your team, like you've looked at, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I had a quick look at Robertson's chances created last 4. It's just 3. So is Robertson worth 7.1? No, at the moment.
Maybe the question is, would you... I mean, maybe this isn't the question because money isn't going to be a problem, really. But say you can afford Robertson and not Trent for whatever reason. Would you go Phillips over Robertson, or would you think, I still want one of the fullbacks?
I would go Phillips over Robertson because Robertson is offering only, at the moment, marginal assist potential. And so I'd be looking at clean sheets there, and I might as well get that from the 4 million guy and then use that 2.1 elsewhere, and I need it. Whereas Alexander Arnold, with 11 chances created, the most creative Liverpool player, then he starts to become worth it, because you're looking at, if you're getting clean sheets and an assist plus bonus, you're looking at what he's been doing. You're looking at 10, 12 points every match, which is great value. So that's what I'd add for that.
So then we have a question from Flinny. Is Lingard a no-brainer, or will he regress? Is Greenwood an option? So we can look at Greenwood separately. But for Lingard, obviously there's been a bit of discussion around that. I think there's a few things I would love to highlight here. I have the privilege of being able to do that. If someone tweets about it, I get to shout at people on a podcast. So I will do that. But hey, fair enough. I would just say, I'm not saying get Lingard or don't get Lingard. It just interests me when we get a situation like this to have a look at it and to try and be as rational as possible in assessing what's happened and what we think is going to happen going forward. So the first thing is, we're seeing Lingard return the points. You can't argue with that. But things aren't binary. So an outcome is binary. It either happens or it doesn't. You either get points or you don't. But when we're looking at whether those points are, deserved or fortunate or because he's a quality player, if we see something like, 0.1 XG, that means it has a 10% chance of being a goal. If that does or doesn't turn into a goal, it becomes a binary result. And we often remember things that happen or don't, as opposed to, human brains aren't good at probability. So if he has scored a few goals, has scored a few assists, we just go, oh, he scored and he's getting assists. We don't think, well, how likely is it that he carries that forward? So then in terms to try and look at how likely he is to carry it forward, we're looking at stats, the old eye test. I would argue they're kind of the same thing. With our eyes, we're looking if he's shooting, we're looking if he's getting good touches. Stats can tell us those things. We just need to make sure we use both of them together to complement each other. And then in terms of the stats we might use for that, with XG and XA in particular, he has overperformed those recently. And the fun numbers to look at are only this season so far. Lingard has an XG of 2.8, but has scored 6 goals. Lionel Messi has an XG of 18, exactly on the nose, and has scored 23 goals. So were Lingard to keep it up, he is better than Lionel Messi. Of course, Lingard's doing it in fewer games, small sample size, so fair enough.
He is better than Messi then.
But the important thing there is what that doesn't say. It doesn't say Lingard will stop scoring. All it says is that so far he has scored more than we would expect him to. That might be down to luck. It might be down to his quality. Of course, he's had slightly tougher fixtures. With some good fixtures to come, he could even improve his XG and keep returning the goals. The only thing is he may not return at the same rate he has done already. But he's a cheap player. He could still be worth it. Yeah. And then when we look at the XA side of it, the last point I'd love to make on that is XA is just slightly less under the control of the player that we're looking at. So XG, if Lingard's got an XG of 1, well, we'd expect him to score 1 goal, and it comes down to luck and his quality. If he, for example, has an XA of 0.02, which he did against Wolves, because he went on a great run and then he passed it forward to Bowen, and Jared Bowen probably scored a goal that you don't score very often, well, that one's not in Lingard's control. So Lingard could lay that chance on all week, and it doesn't really have much to do with Lingard, and it has to do with the player who's converting the chance. So that one is slightly less reliable as a metric when we look at it.
There was just to add to that, that's really great analysis, by the way. They is something that David wrote on Fantasy Football Scout today when he was in his match report on that. Just something just quickly noticed, because some people are thinking if Antonio's not involved, will that harm Lingard's output? And it's just something David noticed. Just a line here. This is after Antonio was subbed off with injury. Lingard did not manage to register a shot on Wolves' goal after the 11th minute of that match. So that's just something to bear in mind. He did get that assist, but that could be a sign that, I wouldn't say, regressing. It's just, that's just looking at Antonio not being there. I think does that harm?
On the idea of regression, there's a really interesting thing to think about there, where, so if we just see XG, ignore quality for a second, let's just say it's luck for ease of argument. If you get 0.5 XG, that might as well be, which Lingard very roughly had in that last match. Great goal. I think he had 2 shots. So that one chance he had inside the area, high XG, converted it well. It was about 0.5, give or take. So you may as well flip a coin. But hey, he's a good finisher. I would note that actually over his career, he's underperformed his XG. So in theory, he's not a good finisher. But if he is a good finisher now, he's improved. Let's say it's better than just a flip of a coin. No, we would expect him to score that more often than he wouldn't. But going forward, if we just kept giving him that chance, he could score every single one of them or score none of them, and it wouldn't affect what happens next time. Like flipping a coin, it is unlikely you will get 10 heads in a row before you've started. But if you get 9 heads in a row, the chance of getting a 10th is still 50-50. And that is exactly the same for Lingard. Just because he's overperformed so far doesn't mean he's about to underperform. He could keep going. All we're saying is that what has happened so far is unlikely.
Yeah, no, it's great. Karen, did you have any thoughts on Greenwood?
It could be an outside punt, but I haven't seen a lot from Greenwood this season. So how much is he now? I didn't even look remember. I think 7 million. If you talk about 7 million, I think there are a lot of options. At least we know that they are playing, or Maddison. They put some stats.
I think if I can afford Greenwood, I can afford Maddison. I want Maddison.
Although he could be interesting end of the season, because I think I owned him some part of last season and he's been okay. But Martial could be out for most of the rest of the season, if not all of the season. So I don't think that Cavani will play all the games. So it still remains to be seen. How would he be involved in the team? But I wouldn't go now. It's a bit early.
And Seb, what's that final question before we get to?
Sure. Well, thank you for letting me go on my Lingard rant there. It's a privileged position to be able to do so on a podcast. So I know other people don't have the same right of reply. So I spoke to a few people about it on Twitter today, and just want to say it's a great conversation. Not for 1 second am I saying anyone's lucky or unlucky. I just think it's really interesting to try and understand, how we view these things. So the last question from James: given game week 33, should Bale or Gundogan be should they be our third City or Spurs players? So, I had Bale on my mock wildcard about a week ago. I'd probably get rid of him were I doing it again now. I liked that idea of Bale, Son, Kane triple up, but if Bale's not going to play, or if he's going to play one of the matches, then probably not worth it. What do you think on Gundogan, Karam? I guess you're probably best placed to tell us if he's going to play.
I think he's had his rest. That's my only subjective opinion. I don't take a disclaimer or whatever. But I think he's so important for us that nobody in the team can do what he does in midfield and in terms of coming into the box. And he was sort of like, he played pretty much every minute with Germany. And so it was very expected to have that rest. I think he will play Leeds because of the way they play intensity and attacking, and so they need more players in midfield where they can control the ball from. So from a tactical standpoint, I think he will be important for the next set of games. Even Dortmund, Leeds, maybe Villa is the one. If there is a game Pep can afford to rest him, and I think Gundogan will play. Now, given the situation of the player or the manager who asked, depends how many players you have for 33. Now, in my case, I do have 3 City and 2 on 1 and Kane. I'm planning to get Son, so that will be maybe 5 by the time I get over 32. And it depends if you have the free hit or not. So you have to take a little bit of a balance whether you need to buy Gundogan now. What will happen to your team? Are you going to be able to fill the 11 or at least 10 players? If that's too much for you, then probably you can find an argument to not have him. But I think if you have him, then it's an easy keep until at least the 33, and then you can decide whether to sell him for a Spurs player or somebody who has the fixture. We mentioned a lot of players, so that's my thoughts about Gundogan. I'm not rushed to sell him yet.
I quite like the idea of Gundogan versus Leeds. If we think he plays, of course, but we've seen a few times, Heung-min Son, Scott McTominay, for example, that Leeds' weakness, at least in the past, because of our man-marking system, has maybe been a quality player coming from deep, overloading, whatever. If Phillips is on De Bruyne, for example, who's picking up Gundogan, we've seen Gundogan score those goals where he arrives in the box and just slots into the net. If I thought any sort of goal was going to happen this weekend, I think it'll be that goal, Gundogan against Leeds. And if you think he's going to play, I mean, I've got Gundogan and was tempted to do him to Jota. I might keep.
Yeah, I'm tempted to keep.
Here you go.
I'm tempted to keep him and perhaps even through 33, because I'm only looking at Kane and Son for Spurs. I'm not interested in a third. I've toyed with the idea of Lloris, or I'm just not. There's just no one there. Mourinho clearly hates everyone there. They all hate him. I don't want to be anywhere near that. So even Son, I perhaps shouldn't have. Kane, I definitely want because he's just magic. But looking at the City game, I can easily bench Kane, Son, and Gundogan. Or Son is the one I want to move out. He's perhaps the one I move out or keep. It's going back to that point Seb was making about booking in a transfer. If you start having more than 3, Spurs and City, then you're starting to look at players down, and then you're sort of booking a transfer in. So I'm hoping there's going to be no injuries, but I think I'd be prepared to go with that. Gundogan, Son, and Kane. But any more, I'm not interested at the moment.
I don't think I will go. I don't think I will go for a third Spurs asset. I thought about the idea of having Reguilón, for example, but having an XGC against a 4 against Newcastle, that says a no for me.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be enough with Son and Kane, I think.
Yeah, I think there's other options.
Dortmund have just equalised against Man City, which
really
means they're going for the strongest team you'd think in next midweek.
Yeah, but this is, I mean...
Oh, my...
My City, my currently City-less wildcard, the most popular question, as Karam made clear as well, is where a City, and this is why where a City, because I just don't know. But yeah, I mean, it would have been great if they were 5-0 up. I would have thought, thank God for that. But yeah, it just adds further doubt. I think we spoke on air as well about I did anyway, about Damned United. And about Brian Clough managing Derby, and just before Derby's European match they went to play Leeds, who completely, they killed them on the pitch in a kind of First World War trench style bloodbath. Man City are playing Leeds United, so if Pep is a fan of Damned United, then he might have that in his mind. Oh my God, it's Leeds. So
bring Billy Bremner back.
It could be. We move on to the next 4, and we've spoken about a lot of these fixtures already. We can see there Wolves, Leicester, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Tottenham with their double. Got great fixtures coming up. These are the teams to target: Crystal Palace, Fulham, Southampton, Leeds, are the teams to be a bit iffy over. Man City have got their rotation worries. And then you've got Villa next to are pretty awful as well, Liverpool and Man City. But bearing that in mind, we've had some reasonable successes. I'm just going to claim my Alonso punt from last week as a differential success. The guy came in with an assist. I'm just going to sketch over the 5 goals he conceded. But nevertheless, for a Chelsea defender last week, 3 points was a result. Cancelo, Gundogan, Antonio and Bale have been our previous differential pick successes. Karam is back on and his turn next. Who is the best low-owned 5% or under gem for the next 4 matches?
All right, so with Kane being top for the XGI of 5.2 in the last 4 matches, Clichy Iheanacho comes second with 3.71 across the forwards, and he's only 5.8%. So he's my pick, basically. 5.8 million, 4.4% at the moment.
Is Iheanacho that low?
He looks... Yeah, when I checked, it's like, I have to think about somebody who has a good fixture. Then I saw Iheanacho, it's like, job done. So he is less than 5%, just about.
Easy.
And we spoke enough about Iheanacho and his involvement, Leicester fixtures. So I found it pretty straightforward. No need to overthink it. So
well,
here he is.
I actually thought he was just above 5%, but yeah, I've just checked you. I was completely wrong. So yeah, great. Yeah, he falls completely into that category, and yeah, it's definitely a player to target. With those fixtures.
Yeah.
Another player I was going to mention, much less fashionable, is Pereira at West Brom. And yes, he did well against Chelsea, so I am partially blinded by that. But he's only 1.8% owned. He's completely nailed, 5.3 million. He's had 4 double-digit hauls, which is not bad considering he's only 5.3 million. He's in a team with something to fight for. There are 3 good fixtures coming up, arguably fixture-proof anyway after Chelsea. So yeah, looking at West Brom, trying to find them on there. Yeah, they got Southampton next, then they got Leicester. That's the tricky one, and then they got Villa and Wolves. Pereira could get returns there. The reason I bring him up because it dovetails nicely with one of our rough with the smooths earlier, where the guy got 98 points, rocketed to the edge of the top 10k, arguably thanks to 21 points from Pereira, as well as other moves going his way. But the Pereira move there, he's got a rare double-digit haul in him, and I think he's a good differential. So Iheanacho, Pereira, and Chris Wood, who we touted in the captaincy video earlier today, to watch that or listen to that for our rationale behind that. Get those 3 in. That's shooting up the ranking. I should be getting those 3 in, but I'm not that kind of manager. Let's move on to our team reveal. So this is at the moment sort of what I'll go for. Within that, I'm thinking Lingard to Gundogan. I'm probably still going to captain one of Fernandes or Salah or Kane, just because they're nailed on and reliable captaincy shouts. And Calvert-Lewin or whoever I have in the Calvert-Lewin role might dip to my first sub. And Cody and Holding, there they are on the bench. I quite fancy Shaw against Tottenham, even though I am playing Son and Kane for that assist potential. And I don't fully know what that score is going to be. And it could be 0-0. It could be high scoring. Cody might end up coming in for Shaw, especially after what Karam's been saying. And Forster's on the bench there. So that's sort of what I'm going for. That's probably very different though. So no one on social media hold me to that, because this is going to change over the time. But this is that's sort of what I'm going for structure wise there. Let's move on to you, Karam, for game week 31. So now you did get in touch, and so you've changed your captain. So currently, it might have changed again, but you've got Martinez, Azpilicueta, Luca Dean, Diaz, Jota, Gundogan, Fernandes, De Bruyne, who you had said you've got the armband on, Iheanacho, Vardy and Kane, and then on your bench you've got Dallas, Mitchell, Smith Rowe and Fabry. So I think you've got your bench sorted there. So does tonight's City lineup change your opinion of the captaincy?
Well, not... Oh, I see now. The City has scored the 2-1. So we hopefully win this
Phil
game.
Foden.
At least we can go strong. Yeah, Phil Foden. Hopefully there is no VAR. We've been there before. But I think the result will influence the decision because currently it's on KDB. I think when I sent the team to you earlier, it was on Fernandes.
Yeah.
And I'm still between these two. Currently it's on KDB just because I think I want to play the Pep Roulette. And I think we are capable of scoring. So Fernandes and Kane, it could be a lot of goals because of the Tottenham defense statistically was really bad against Newcastle, but also Manchester United can play the 0-0 game against, as we've seen this season. They tend to go for a very low scoring games. Let's put it in a much nicer definition against the top sides, and so it can go either way. I've already used 2 transfers. I had 0.0 in the bank. If I didn't make that move on Saturday night. So I sold Watkins and I sold Rafinha for Jota and a Iheanacho. I would be priced out if I waited that night. So kind of that's what I wanted to have, some cover. And Jota has played only in 80 minutes. So hopefully he gets a start against Villa. And it's gonna go to the last day, till Friday, between De Bruyne, Fernandes. I'm actually considering Vardy as an outsider captaincy pick. For some reason, I feel okay. This game week, probably the best captain would be something that we don't necessarily anticipate because it's really open game week. So there is a chance that Vardy comes in the mix with the captaincy, but currently it's on KDB.
Yeah, this is why we were touting Chris Wood earlier, and he genuinely is against Southampton. Southampton concede a high level of chances and a high level of double-digit hauls. Meanwhile, Chris Wood is up there amongst 5 or 6 really good assets for this particular fixture. So,
I mean, last time we had a week like this, I think Harry Kane was probably the most popular. I think it's who I captained. But it was that week that Trossard and Lingard both returned. Again, from very small underlying numbers. But it's one match. Underlying numbers in one match, don't matter that much. I think it could be the one match that you score your worldie. So maybe this is a week to just pick that player that you've got, I don't know, a feeling, intuition, something that you can't quite quantify over, and back it up later.
It's if people are wildcarding, say 32, I do think that is viable for some people. Dead end with game week 31 with a nice punt of Chris Wood or Danny Ings, something like that. I think you could, could get a good send off for your team there. Seb, let's move on to your team. So you've got Pope in goal, Luke Dean, Luke Shaw, Cancelo, and then Rafinha, Bale, Son, KDB as the captain, Gundogan, Bamford, and Kane. And then on your bench, Martinez, Watkins, Veltman, and Ayling. So are any of these gonna change?
I have 2 free transfers and a ton of money in the bank, so there are things to be done. I'm not sure what I want to do this week. I probably will leave the captain on KDB for now, but of course I'll mull it over. I'm not sure I have a standout option in my team really for captain, to be completely honest, so we'll see. I probably have 4 or 5 players I want eventually in the next couple of weeks. It's just a case of, who do I get for this week? Who do I get now? Who do I prioritise? So Trent, Jota, until Antonio got injured, I really like the idea of Antonio. They've got great fixtures to the end of the season. A little tougher right now, but he scored twice against City, 2 assists against Tottenham, 1 against Arsenal, and scores against poorer teams, has great stats to back it up. If he's fit, I'd be tempted by a Bamford to Antonio at some point. If he's not fit, Lingard absolutely tempts me. We've spoken a lot about whether he's overperforming stats, but he still has the stats that would return points, just maybe not as many. And as plenty of people have pointed out, stats maybe can't adequately capture everything. If there's something we're missing, if Lingard keeps doing this for a year, I'd be very hard pressed to say it wasn't a good pick. So I can either be right or I can win FPL. So I'll happily get Lingard if he still looks like scoring points.
I think that's a really good idea with Jota being in the mix as well. But also, one of Lingard or Antonio. And Antonio.
And then I guess the last one is Salah on that, where, those 4 or 5 that I want, possibly that one has to wait until Bale or Son have played. I feel like I have to carry Bale for 32 now just because just because he's there. I wouldn't have picked him, but he's there. I feel like I have to carry him now. And then Bale and Son combined to become
you've come this far. I like within a wild card or within any structure of a team, cash cows is and for some reason Spurs midfielders have got a big history with me with that, and it always used to be Eriksen, and Eriksen, like Bale is, and Son is starting to get that way. These are players you want to have, and at the same time you're quite happy to ditch, and they're usually priced around that 8-9 million mark as well. So you can move them on, and you've got like potentially, if you move them down to say a 5-6 million player, you've got 3 or 4 million to play with, and that's a really handy player to have.
The thing I might do tonight before the price goes up as well, or maybe goes up, is bring Fraser Forster in, just because there's that 4.0 sits on my bench. Hopefully, he gets played some of the time, especially in the double, and then just really does give me a lot of money to basically get any player I want in my second transfer for the end of the week.
Yeah, no, I think Forster, if he's nailed on, I hope he is. It's worth pointing out that McCarthy's down to 4.4. So with a couple of price rises and a couple of price changes there, we might end up seeing them about the same price.
Is there a world where you get both of them?
If I didn't have my bench boost, I would just hang it after game week 33, because they of course blank them. But yeah, I would just go for that. Because it just takes... I've quite enjoyed this season not rotating goalkeepers. So I've had Edison for a while. I think I had Martinez briefly. I think I've had Pope. And I haven't really rotated them. I've just had a cheap one, a non-player sometimes. And
rotating goalkeepers is one of those ones that is a brilliant idea if you can pull it off. But it's often so difficult to pull off because obviously...
I never did it right, so...
Exactly. You're going for those defensive fixtures where you get your clean sheets. But how often do we see a goalkeeper actually get their biggest points in that unexpected game? If you just miss out on that, it could tip you over the edge. And there's something in you're trading stock markets or whatever, that the people who trade day to day and try and make those edges end up with very similar returns to the people who just buy something and hold it for 10 years. It reminds me a bit of goalkeepers, where you could try and pick the right one every week, or you could just pick one good one, leave it, and probably end up with very similar points.
It's exactly right. It's a lot. It just takes a decision out of the hands, and also it depends on the goalkeepers as well. So if you've got 2 really good 4.5 goalkeepers, and you're happy if either of them play, really, that's good to have. But so often now we're getting they're 5.5, and you can't justify having two of those in, and it takes away from the rest of the squad. So just lately the good goalkeepers just happen to have been priced annoyingly correctly.
So someone in the chat has just pointed out as well, in terms of if you had unlimited transfers, maybe you chop and change goalkeepers all the time. But how often do we see you don't want to waste the transfer on a goalkeeper?
That's why I've got Leno in, and people go, but Arsenal can't keep clean sheets. But the fixtures are so good, you could just you can just feel happy putting him in, and hopefully he does well. And this time last season, I mean, Leno got injured, but Leno was doing all right until Martinez came in and did even better. But Arsenal were a good source of clean sheets towards the end of the season, and Arteta's team has shown me they can do that, and they might have less attack to them with Tierney out as well. A few other people mentioned in the chat just before we go. We're talking about Arsenal. Some people, Matt Henley is captaining Aubameyang, and Historia Films Kenya, very prestigious. Lacazette captain. Historia Films Kenya. Hopefully they'll be dancing in the streets of Historia Films Kenya tonight when Lacazette scores. But Lacazette still tempts me to this day, and but it's booking in a transfer because I don't really want to invest too much in Arsenal attack. But it's a Sheffield United fixture is good, so it's a 1 week punt. I think Lacazette is a good move at Sheffield United, depending on his minutes. In the meantime, I just want to remind people about the members area. We pulled loads of stats there. Do have a look at that. Lots of tons of Opta-driven data. Lots of tools to have a look at there. And of course, the goals imminent table, and you can make your own tables. Do check it out. If you like this episode, please do press like. And also, do remember to subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And of course, on YouTube, and follow our YouTube channel. So you get advanced warning or notice, whichever way you want to look at our latest videos and podcasts. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
That's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye, Karen.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.